Hey guys, this will be the third episode of D is for Democracy. We're playing Democracy 3 as the United States, and our first step was to drastically raise taxes and cut military and social pension, like state pension budget. And then after that, we spent a lot of time raising every little individual tax to the highest I thought I could get away with. And then we enacted a bunch of things that will make poor people over the long term like us a lot more, because we plan to have a lot of poor people. We plan to have a lot of homelessness. We plan to have a lot of poor people. We plan to have a lot of old people dying on the streets because they don't have social welfare. All of these things are good for paying down the debt. And once we've paid down the debt, then we will go back and we will give them the money that they deserve for being poor. But until then, they can all suck it. And we want them to be happy while they're poor, because if you create a lot of poor people, you better make sure they like you. All right. So foreign policy. Looking for look at that, 4.2. Way to go, dude. Welfare. We're looking for somebody who's like 3.8 for welfare. Nice. And now for the economy, we want a minister with chops. A minister with 7 chops at least. If his chop number is less than 7, we can't take it. We can't hack it. Nope. There's nobody who wants to be working for the economy. That's very sad. Our economists all hate us. Look at this. 1.2, and 2.6. Our best economist is only 2.6. That's very sad. All right, taxes as well. I suspect nobody wants to be the guy who is the face of the White House tax policy, because our tax policy is pretty ridiculous. It's pretty insulting to humanity. Law and order, we got to get this guy in there somewhere, so he'll be law and order. And then transportation will be the last remaining 3.4 guy. And there we go. Way to minister it up. And then next turn, market meltdown. Yep, that's not good for us. And the election is coming up. And capitalists still want to shoot us in the face. Capitalists are actually significantly unhappy. They're much lower than I'd like for them to be. How can we make them happier? Meow, 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 meow. They don't like consumers to have rights. Capitalists have such ridiculous demands. There we go. Technology grants make capitalists a tiny bit happier. It only goes up by 1. It's not worth spending political capital to give them +1. +1 happiness. Toll roads. That's what we were saving up for. This will make capitalists super happy. It'll give them 23 happiness. I don't know why capitalists think it's such a good idea to have toll roads, but they are really fond of toll roads, those guys. Why should the state pay for the roads? Because they go between... Yeah. Anyway. Looks good. Our deficit is down from 3.5 trillion to 2.5 trillion, but it's not falling as fast as we'd like. In fact, we have a deficit at this point. It's impossible to really raise our income much higher, because as you can see, we raised it as high as it would go, and it dropped because our economy sucks. So now the only way to get income up is to raise the GDP, to raise the relative GDP, which has dropped a bunch because of the market meltdown. So we're just going to ride out this market meltdown period of time. Actually, we should raise the car tax. Car tax. Tax the cars. Car tax. I think we already raised it as high as we can without impacting middle income earnings, but we'll raise it some more. Is this going to give me significant money? It's only going to give me $40 billion. And I can't afford to do it anyway. Well then. Credit downgraded because we have a deficit. I wish it would tell me when the next election is. Look at this. So the Democrats, my opposition, have 30 million members, and I've got 8 million members. And I've got 1 million activists, and they've only got less than 1 million activists. So I think I might win the election, but I don't know when it is. I wish it would tell me when the election is. Should be like a date tab. What does this do? Quarterly report. I guess I could have just counted. I mean, 5 times 4 is 20 turns, so on the 20th turn is the election. I don't know how to tell what turn it is, but next time I'll use my ability to count numbers to count. Alright, let's look for some popular laws to get us elected. Tax shelters. So a tax shelter is when you don't tax the super rich very much because you want them to live in your country instead of someone else's, because not very much relative to other countries is still a ridiculous amount of income, right? Like, imagine Bill Gates living in America gives America, you know, $1 million a year or something. So if you cut that to $500,000 and that incentivizes him to live here instead of moving to Sweden, then it's worth it. It's a little bit weird, but whatever. I'm all about tax shelters. Here's the election. Do it. Do it. Elect me. Ah, I win. I win the election. Look at that. Non-voters win the election. Alright, we made it. We made it, you guys. Divisive leader. A narrow victory. By just squeaking past the point needed for re-election, you have managed to retain power but are widely seen as a divisive leader. I'm very divisive. So now we've got 20 turns until the next election, so we can do things that take 20 turns. So there's a good example of something that takes 20 turns, and I forget what it was. Let's look at GDP and look for the number 20. Right here. Science funding takes 20 turns. Boom! And this takes 16 turns, so we'll do that too, right? Anything that takes a very large number of turns, we want to do right now, because it'll kick in right at the end of... Oh, we already did that one. Right at the end when the next election is coming. Science funding, we already did that. I wish there was a back button, right? So you click GDP, and then you click this. You say, no, wait. Okay, technological advantage, right? So what is that technological advantage? It comes from tax shelters, technology, creationism versus evolution. Oh, let's do this. Boom, we'll piss off religious people and hope they don't shoot us in the face. Alright, so they're not mad at all. How much mad do you think they can take? Also, we can't do this turn. Next turn we'll have 49, so we'll waste 3 if we don't spend it. So we need to spend at least 3. But I want to look into perhaps pissing off religious people. They're already mad about euthanasia. I think 12. So we're up 4, and then we're down 2. Alright, I don't think we should piss off the religious people yet. It's so weird that creationism versus evolution would have an impact over just a 5-year period. That's ridiculous. That wouldn't make a difference in 5 years, right? That would make a difference over 20 years. It's actually easier to swing towards religion than it is to swing towards science. That's weird. Alright, so our largest groups are liberals and socialists, right? So let's see what they want. Liberals, what do you need? Actually, we don't need to make people happy right now. We need to do things that raise the GDP in the long term. So one of the things that raises the GDP in the long term is not being in a huge debt, right? So we just spent a bunch of money to fund 2 different science initiatives, and now we need to get money. So we can introduce a whole new tax. That's what we should do. I want to introduce a carbon tax. Super unpopular and only has long-term effects and not short-term effects. But we don't have another election for a really long time, so I'm all about that. So look for something that only costs 3 or 4. This only costs 6. We'll do this. Let's make some robots, yo. Good. Do we want to deport a criminal so that he will be killed by his own country, or do we want to put him in jail here, even though he's not from here and doesn't belong here? I'm all about sending him home, man. You break the law, I don't care what happens to you after that. Well, I mean, there's, you know, if you're Scarface, then I don't care what happens to you. You know, if you stole $7 worth of Pepsi, I care about you quite a bit. All right, media backlash just means that everyone dislikes us a little bit because someone wrote a scathing article about how we suck balls. Credit downgrade because we've been running a deficit for 3 turns now, and actually we're running an even greater deficit now than we were before. We're starting to eat into the giant surplus that we'd built. So now we got 42 points. We can introduce a carbon tax. Now you got to be careful about this carbon tax, right? Because it's going to upset, it's going to reduce the GDP by a significant amount, and it's going to upset capitalists if you go beyond 13%. But even a 13% carbon tax is still $90 billion. You just want to be sure not to go too high with it, because up here, capitalists and everyone and air travel are very, very mad at you. And it impacts your GDP. And GDP is the long-term budget. Short-term budget is just how much money can you squeeze from these people. But GDP impacts your long-term profitability. So I think we want to squeeze out. Our current deficit is like 300 billion. But if we tried to squeeze out 300 billion, it would be a big negative impact on GDP. I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to leave it in the middle. I've never played long enough to know the long-term impact of that, because it says it increases energy efficiency over time. But what does that even mean? You know, like, no idea. I mean, I know what it means. It's like, okay, this game is about math, right? And all of the math is hidden from you. It's not hidden from you. It's just complicated to get into. If I could access the source code and run scripts on this game, it would be so much easier to decide. So, for example, your military budget, right? If you give the military a ton of money, then they hire a ton of people and pay the money that you gave them to those people. So the money all goes back into your economy. So why not just have a giant military for no reason, right? But the amount of money you put in relative to the amount of money you take back out as taxes is dependent on how much of the money that the people you have working for you are being taxed, right? So if I only take back 15% of the wages in taxes, then I'm collecting $1 million, hiring $1 million worth of people, and then getting 15% of that back, and then using that 15% to, you know, hire those same people again, right? So you actually lose money. Anytime you have state-funded workers, you're losing money unless the thing you're hiring them to do increases the effectiveness of your economy overall, which the military doesn't. So every penny you put into the military is a penny wasted, but there's this little feedback loop where it, you know, a little bit of good comes of it. But that good is outweighed by the bad. And if you didn't know the numbers, if you didn't know how much of the money that you get back in reductions to unemployment were going to translate to actual beneficial dollars, then there's no way to know, you know, because there's a plus and a minus, and they both affect economy directly. It's hard to tell whether it's a net positive or net negative. So same with like robotics grants. I'm just taking money and dumping it into having better robots. But is that eventually going to earn me more money than I put in? Who knows? Wow. Very few people identify as poor. That's unusual. I would think everyone would be poor. All right, let's tax cigarettes. And alcohol. Cigarettes and alcohol. I like toxic waste dumps, but, you know, environmentalists don't. Security briefing. Looks like capitalists are mad at me. How's it going, capitalists? So I had them very, very mad at me when the market downturn happened, and they're starting to get more and more tolerant of my ness as toll roads increases and as the market meltdown decreases. So I don't think I need to do anything on that front. I'm super surprised that the toxic waste dump wasn't a net positive on capitalism. You know, you'd think allowing people to dump toxic waste in your nation would be a big positive for capitalism. It's like a win-win for capitalism, baby. Anyway, first we will tax alcohol. How do we tax alcohol, man? There we go. Alcohol, airplanes. The whole flat tax thing is hilarious. Let's tax the poor instead of the rich. Go. Okay. Our cabinet is fine. Next turn we'll have 47 and we'll lose 3 of it. So we need to spend at least 3. Is there anything cheap? This is pretty cheap, and it reduces the number of people that drive cars. Sure. It upsets motorists, but it reduces the number of them. Why does it upset motorists to have a bus lane? I don't understand why that would upset someone who doesn't take the bus. Why should my tax dollars be spent on public transportation that improves my air that I breathe? I don't understand it. I get it. I get it. Who wants to improve their own air that they breathe? It's not right. Unemployment very high. Because taxes are very high. Oh, I always allow genetically modified food, because if we couldn't use science to benefit humanity, then what would the point of science be, right? Okay. Religious people are not super mad at us. Capitalists are pretty mad, but they're getting happier every moment. And we got 36 political capital. We saved it up so that we could tax alcohol, and we will go do that. Let's tax us some alcohol up in here. Very unpopular to tax alcohol because everybody drinks alcohol. It disproportionately affects the poor, because if everybody pays $7 in order to drink one drink on the weekend, then that affects rich people less than it affects poor people, because $7 means more to poor people than it means to rich people. Anytime you tax, it's just like sales tax. Anytime you tax a thing that people buy, it affects poor people more than rich people, and I'm okay with that. Let's piss off some poor people because we're paying them to be poor, remember? Where's that thing where we pay them to be poor? Anyway, we're totally paying them to be poor, so they can afford a little bit of off-pissery. Next we'll tax. Yay! Internet economy takes off. We're rich. Capitalists still want to kill us, and now liberals also want to kill us, which is odd because we're actually doing good with liberals, so why do they want to kill us? Torture deportation decision that I made. Homelessness in general. Man. So we're, for the first time, making $2 trillion per turn. I've never made $2 trillion per turn, so I'm pretty impressed. Way to go. Good job making $2 trillion, guys. It's good times. So let's introduce we'll just raise the cigarette tax that already exists to an extremely high number that will piss off everyone in the world. Why does this piss off everyone? Does everyone smoke? I guess it pisses off 18% of everyone because 18% of people smoke. I'm okay with pissing off everyone. I don't think everyone can become a terrorist, you know? Plus, it's a lot cheaper to lower it than it is to raise it, so if we need to lower it in the future, we will. Yep, votes be damned for the first 10 turns of this, you know, whatever. 10 turns of this term. Turns of term. Terms of turn. Credit rating upgraded. Yay! Capitalists love us. The global economy is in recession, but we don't care because we're doing great. Human Rights Society. Very upset about human rights. Freedom and heritage. Freedom. Freedom is liberal. It's not increasing. The threat's not going up, but there is quite a threat. And this threat is going down. So that's good. Alright, so we've taxed lots of stuff. We're making $2.2 trillion. Let's see what else we can tax. Let's tax plastic bags. What the hell? Let's pay people to go to school. Why not? Okay, so this is one of those things where there's two ways you can spend money on education. I can spend money through a school tax credit to help people who've already graduated high school go to college. These are people that have already proven that they want to go to college and become a skilled worker. Or I can spend more money funding federal schools, which are for both people that actually want to become a skilled worker and people who don't and are forced to go to school. So I think it's always better to spend money on colleges than it is to spend money on high schools. So I'm going to do it, man. This upsets the poor. No, because poor people don't go to college. I get it. That's weird. You'd think, like, if we're granting school tax credits, I guess what we're doing is saying if you spent $10,000 to pay for college tuition, then you can reduce your income as reported to the government by $10,000, so that you're not being taxed on that money. It's like a tax credit. So in order to qualify for that tax credit, one, you have to be able to afford to go to college. And two, you need to earn enough money that we're taxing you in the first place. Because a tax exemption means nothing to someone whose total taxes are zero. In fact, I make $70,000 a year, and according to the U.S. government, $0 of that is taxable because of all the various credits and exemptions that I qualify for because I have 4 kids. So, as a poor person, it's kind of funny to say that because I don't consider myself poor at all. I would be upset about something like that, where they're taking a little bit more off of your taxes. Like, if I'm not paying taxes, then why do I care what kind of tax exemptions there are? Now, in practice, I'm not upset about that. I think it's fine. But that's the idea there. Right, nuclear test ban treaty. I'm all about nukes. I think we should nuke everyone. Let's just nuke the world. So, no nuclear test ban treaty. That should upset foreign people, which will reduce foreign trade and make ethnic minorities mad at us a little bit, I think. But I'm okay with it. I would think it would increase racial tension and stuff, but I guess it doesn't. Racial tension is caused by the citizenship test, but less of it than would be caused. No, that's weird. I increased the citizenship test in order to reduce racial tension, and it had the reverse effect. I totally misread that. That's unfortunate, man. I would reverse the policy for only $4. Yeah, I don't know why I did that. I thought that by ensuring that everyone who came here would speak English, that there would be less racial tension because they'd speak the same language as the people they were around. But I was exactly opposite of the truth. Sorry. There's a lot of people in this everyone group. We should make them mad. Ooh, Jesus fish. Hey, Jesus fish. I really want to do that. But I can't afford to be assassinated right now. To wait until the religious group, the membership, is dropped low enough. It's constantly dropping, but it's not low enough yet. Foreign aid, la 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 la, foreign aid. Legal aid, la 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 la, legal aid. I don't think it's worth the $5 billion to gain pluses, tiny amount of pluses with some people. Alright, let's go back to taxing stuff. I like taxing stuff. So we put in a carbon tax. Now we want a... Ooh, what's this? This allows people to claim tax relief on interest payments they have made when they borrow money to buy a house. It helps homebuyers to afford their mortgage payments, but can be resented by those who are not in a position to buy a house, as it is effectively a tax break for homebuyers. This will help the middle class, hurt the poor. I think helping the middle class is always good, though. I mean, I've kind of thrown them under the bus, but I wish I didn't have to. once we're rich. Airline tax. I think I'm going to tax some plastic bags. It'll generate $1 billion, and it will only piss off capitalists. And capitalists like me, so it's okay. We need another thing that'll give us $1 billion. Taxes, junk food tax, health food subsidies. That's not very popular. Look how popular luxury goods taxes are. And yet, if you implement this, it cripples your economy by causing a brain drain. Basically, anyone who's smart doesn't live in your country anymore if you implement a luxury goods tax. Tax luxury recreational drugs would be silly because they're illegal. Adult education subsidies help people to become skilled workers who were previously not skilled workers. I like that one. I think I'm going to get that one. Unemployment is on the downtrend. GDP is on the rise. Crime is staying steady. Health is still poor. Poverty, education, it's looking good. High productivity, a new situation is developed. I bet we earned a bunch of money this quarter. I'm happy about that. Capitalists' hatred of me is dying down since the market crash is being forgotten by so many people. We're making $400 billion surplus. I like it. Science funding. Woohoo! Alright, I'd like to dump some of our money into things, but I want to pay down the entire deficit before I start dumping money anywhere. So it's hard to nickel and dime with things that don't cost much when you know you have all this money. Oh, by the way, the welfare fraud department is actually now generating money. Just a tiny bit. Because we increased welfare by so much. So, new policy. Well, let's pick a specific group to make happy. I like capitalists. Let's find out what's making them unhappy. They're happy about gambling. Let's check out gambling. Organized crime is happy about gambling too. Organized crime is fought by the FBI and guns. We could pay the FBI more, but paying the FBI makes everyone hate you, right? No, it just makes liberals hate you. I won't pay the FBI. Wonder about wiretapping. I think you need to be able to wiretap in order to fight organized crime, right? And drones. Yeah, drones. I want drones. So this fights crime by 11 for a cost of 27 billion. But it costs us 13 liberal. So 11 for 13. That's much better than the prisoner watching program, right? So let's see. 11, 13, 27. Let's check out something that we know is comparable, right? Tagging prisoners. Ankle bracelets. Okay. This is free 8 and 14. So actually this is quite good because it's free. What about arming the police? This is 20 billion. Fights crime by 13. And yeah, this is slightly more expensive and has the same downsides and the same upsides. So basically, having drones is just like having guns. I'm happy with that. Now this might tip liberals over the edge of hatred towards me, and if it does, then I'll get rid of the prisoner tagging, even though I like prisoner tagging because it's free and money is important to me. Alright, internet tracking. I'm all about internet tracking. Who wouldn't like internet tracking, you guys? Seriously, we should track the internet. Parents are still mad about asthma, and asthma is still mad about the environment. No, wait. It's happy about the environment. It's mad about cars. And cars are mad about roads and having a positive GDP. public transportation has been requested by mothers everywhere. Emission limits. There you go. Let's stop putting asthma in our babies, please. My babies don't want any asthma, please. Uh-oh, one of our ministers hates us. Yay! We paid off more of our debt. Good times. And it looks like the threats are staying the same. And I have lost my voice, so I guess that's the end of this episode. So just remember, D